Hi everyone, my name is Yuji Shizume, and today I'm here to talk about why I became a voice actor at the age of 45. Yes, you heard me right. I became a Japanese voice actor at the age of 45. Now, for those of you who don't know me, which I believe would be the majority of the people watching this video, just to give a little bit background about myself. So I'm Yuji. I'm 45 years old. I'm Japanese. I was actually born in Japan, but I was raised in the United States when I was a child. Hence, my English accent is like this. I went to high school and university in Japan, and then I joined a management consultancy firm called Accenture right after I graduated from college. And after 21 years, I left the firm last year. And from this April, I'm working with a Japanese voice actor agency called Mouvement. So that's kind of like my brief summary of who I am. When I first posted this online to my friends on Facebook, a lot of them were really surprised in this huge career shift that I took. A lot of people asked me why did you leave such a good paying company and start a totally different career. And when I talked to a lot of my friends who were more or less kind of like the same age as I am, so people in their late 30s or in their 40s, a lot of people were kind of inspired by this huge shift that I took. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone wants to become a voice actor, but it's more about like what is your goal in your life and how do you plan to make that uh, available to yourself. So I thought I'd share like my thought process of what I was thinking or like how it became like this. Now, being a voice actor may not necessarily be my life goal. It may be a stepping stone, but who knows? Like I really haven't got to that stage yet. But there is some thought into what I'm doing right now. So I thought I'd share like my thought process of what I thought about in terms of what I wanted to achieve in life. Now, for those of you who are familiar with TED Talk, maybe you've seen a video. If you sort by the most watched videos, and I believe it's definitely within the top 10 ranking videos, there's a video under the title of What Makes a Happy Life by Robert Waldinger, Waldingr. And he talks about a study that was done at Harvard for over 80 years. And long story short, the people who are living a happy life in their 80s or in their 90s are people who have a good quality of relationships. Now, good quality, as the word says, is not necessarily about quantity. So it's not the number of friends that you have. You could have, you could have like 3,000, 4,000 people on Facebook, your friends, but you may still feel lonely. Or you could be, you could be in a crowd. You could be at a barbecue party, surrounded by your friends, or you could still feel lonely. So we all know it's not the number of people, it's not the number of friends that make you happy, but it's more about the quality. And it's not necessarily about whether you're married or not. You could be single and you could still have a good quality of relationships, or you could be married and you could have a really negative relationship with your spouse. But what we all know is that so again, a relationship isn't necessarily about your spouse. Or it could be your friends. It could be your family. Now, what Robert mentions in his video is that the people who proactively shifted their workmates to their new friendmates when they retired were the ones that were living a happy life in their 80s and 90s. So that's kind of like what I thought about. And when I looked back to my life, again, so I've been with a management consulting firm for over 20 years and with the same company. So when I looked back at my life, I was more like the naive person where like I thought if I worked hard and if I stayed with this like one company for like the rest of my life, for my entire life, then everything would be okay. That's how naive I was. And like we clearly know truth. That's not the case, right? I mean, like the company that I work with was a really good company, and I really love the people working there. I still have really good relationships with some of the people, but we all know that work isn't your entire life. You kind of need to build your own life. But I was so naive for whatever reason that I couldn't figure that out, and I thought like if I just worked hard, then everything would be good in life. Totally wrong idea and totally wrong thought. So so that's kind of like what I like kind of what I figured at the age of like 40, 42 or 3. Like, oh my gosh, I actually need to do something with my life. Like the company is going to take care of me, like duh. But I did for whatever reason I couldn't think about that. So that's when I thought, okay, well, what have I done so far? Being at the company for 20 years, I built friends, but those were friends that it's it, like be your friends at a company shouldn't be your entirety of your life, but that's kind of how it was for me. Being at the same company for over 20 years, and for those of you who know, consulting is like you work based on projects. So you could have one project, and that when that project finishes, you go on to another project, and you meet different people, which means like essentially you could make friends at different projects. But when you take a more macro view of that, if you look at it from a company view or like from your life view, it's like you're making friends within the circle of your company, but like that's it. It doesn't grow beyond that. And that's what I was doing, and I felt comfortable at that because it's kind of like your community. You know the people around. You know the protocol. Everyone's like speaking on the same protocol. Have their everyone's kind of like on the same level in terms of their beliefs and their values. So I felt comfortable, but that's when I realized that I'm only building relationships with like one small segment of my life, and that kind of is turning into like my entirety of my life. So that's when I figured, okay, well, so going back to Robert's video on TED Talk, if I want to live a happy life, I need to have good quality of relationships. And this kind of, for me, like building relationships is kind of like similar to investment in the sense that the golden theory or like the golden rule of investment is that you need to have a balanced portfolio because unless you can predict the market, you don't know what's going to happen. So that's why you need to balance out your investment, your assets. For me, relationships are the same thing that you don't really know like how things are going to turn out with your friends. Your friends may take turns in their lives, and something may happen, or something may happen in your life, and you may have different beliefs, different values, and different thoughts. So for me, not knowing like who or like what kind of people are going to be like my good quality of friends or like quality of circle, for me it's more about, okay, I need to build like a portfolio, a balance of friendships, networks, and some may work out, some may not, or some may initially feel like they're not working out, but eventually something may happen, and that actually may be your quote unquote lifetime friend. So being working at the same company for over 20 years, and I was only like investing in that segment for the last like 2 decades. So I figured, okay, well, I need to build like new friends, go into have new relationships with different people, which I totally forgot like how to do. Like, how do I build new friends? Um, so that's when I figured, okay, thought process. I want to live a happy life, and Robert Waldinger's TED Talk video says that in order to live a happy life, you need to have good quality of relationships. I only had like a quality of relationships, so I figured, okay, I probably need a little bit more to expand my portfolio. So, how do you make new friends? And you probably need something in common with your friends or your acquaintances to talk about, right? So okay, so you need a hobby, and that's where I figured, like, well, that's when what struck me was that, oh my gosh, like I don't have a hobby. And this was like 3 years ago when I was thinking, what do I want to do in life? And I was stuck. Well, I wasn't stuck. I worked for this company for over 20 years, and basically like I invested all my time in work, and that may sound good, but in other words, like I didn't do anything else in terms of like building relationships or making new hobbies. Like zero, nada, none. So that's how I turned into a very dull person at the age of 40 something. And I figured, okay, I need a hobby. Fortunately for me, when I looked back into my life at that time, and I thought like what my parents told me when I was a child, and apparently what my parents told me was that I liked acting when I was like 5 or 6 years old. There was some kind of a gig that we did at kindergarten, and what my parents told me was that I really seemed to be enjoying it. So maybe acting was something that um, I enjoyed it at that time. And also another factor was being a management consultant, and in my opinion, is that management consulting work in a sense is kind of like acting in the sense that um, you're not telling a lie. You're definitely not telling a lie, but in order to like have your client feel more comfortable or have more confidence in making that decision, there's some drama into it or some passion that you put into it, so that you kind of like nudge the client, or it could be your teammates, it could be your project members, or it could be your boss, whatever. So probably in like any kind of like relationship, there's drama into it. There's passion into it. There's that like emotion. There's that fuzzy thing that goes into any kind of conversation. So in my view, being a management consultant, there's part of like there's an aspect of acting into it, which I enjoyed. For example, doing a presentation in front of the board of the client, like 10, 20 people, which I enjoyed, or doing a presentation in front of like 100 people. I got excited. I really enjoyed doing that as well. Versus some people really don't like to do presentations in front of a mass number of people, which wasn't my case. So for me, like doing presentations was kind of like going on stage and doing an act. So so in my case, that's when I figured, okay, well maybe I like acting. And also, some of my friends told me that I have a good voice, which it's kind of hard for to tell from yourself, because the voice that you listen is different from what the other people hear. So I didn't really think I have a good voice, but that's what some people told me. And also, voice acting seemed to be something that I wanted to do. When I was a high school kid, that's when Japanese anime started to make a huge hit, and voice actors kind of became popular at that time. So I kind of have a little bit knowledge about um, the voice actors at that time, and it seemed like a really good, well, an interesting occupation. So figured, okay, I like acting, I like going on stage. Some people tell me that I have a good voice, so let's give it a try. So that's how it started 3 years ago, that I started to take voice acting lessons. And fortunately, from this April, I am temporarily contracted to a Japanese voice acting agency. Now, the message that I wanted to deliver in this video is it's not about voice acting. It's because that's like my personal hobby, and I mean everyone has their own different hobby. But it's more about how much time do you think it's going to take for you to master what you want to be good at? And like for example, me working at a management consulting firm for over 20 years, and I think like I'm comfortable in saying that I was a management consultant once. I know how to do consulting in certain areas. I'm good at certain domains of that work. I'm not an expert in everything, but I'm an expert in this specific field. So I can proudly say that I'm good at some stuff of work within the consulting business after I've been in the business for over 20 years. So, um, so that's when I thought at the age of 43, whatever new hobby that I'm going to take on, it's probably going to take like at least a decade or two to get really good at. Now, building a relationship with people may not necessarily take like 2 decades or so, but we still know that it takes time, right? I believe like we've all had that experience. The best friend or the best friend that you thought turned out to be maybe your not so good friend, and things may have taken a turn. Or the person that you thought was just your neighbor or some like nobody, surprisingly turns out to be like your best friend after a year of acquaintance or whatever. So we know that relationships take time, right? And for me, my way of thinking was, okay, I want a good quality of relationship, and in order to do so, I need a hobby. So I'm gonna start with a hobby. We'll see how it goes, and then I'll start. In the meantime, hopefully, I'll build new relationships with different communities. And again, because since whatever hobby or whatever relationship, it takes time. That's why I figured I like when's a good time to start? It's like now, right? I mean, I was at the age of 43 at that time. I'm now 45, and you're not going to get any younger, so why wait? So what I felt was I wouldn't say wrong, but like what I saw like people that were a little bit senior than me do was like they like work rigorously, like really hard till they retire, and you start a new hobby at the age of like 60 or 65. Now, if you're really like if you're masculine, you have that energy to do whatever new hobby that you want to do at the age of 60 or 65. Great, go knock yourself out. But like we all know that whatever hobby that you take, and there's probably some like you know physical element to it as well. So for me, like I couldn't imagine myself working until the age of 60 with just like one just working alone, and then starting a new hobby at that time after retirement. So that's how I figured, okay, I probably need to start earlier, like now, um, to not only master that hobby, but also like make new friends and build a good trusted relationship. Because, and I really recommend going to that video. But as Robert says in his videos, that people who were successful, or people who felt they are living a happy life, are people who proactively change their workmates to playmates post retirement. And that's what I believe we kind of slack, or we kind of forget to do. And we think like, or at least in my case, I was very, or I'm probably am, a naive guy that I thought like if I work hard, and if I dedicate my life to my company, then everything would go well, which totally is not the case, right? So that's where you kind of need to find the right balance between, okay, well, I mean, work is important, you need to get a paycheck, and well, if you enjoy doing your work, that's great. But how do you balance that time and effort, or maybe like there's some investment aspect into it in terms of uh, putting effort into your work, and also making an investment into your hobby, or building new relationships, so that when you retire at the age of whatever, 50, 60, 70, whatever, you're making a shift from your workmates to your playmates. So yeah, that's kind of like what I wanted to talk about, was like you probably what I didn't have in mind was like I needed to have that strategy in terms of shifting your workmates into new friends. I'm not talking about leaving your past friends behind. I mean, you don't necessarily need to cut them off, but um again, it's kind of like a portfolio. It's a balance, right? So your friends, they're friends, but you need to make new friends and kind of balance it out. So I didn't have that in mind. So that's when I thought about, okay, I gradually need to make that shift. And in order to make that shift, I need to have a new hobby and start something new. So hence here I am. So That's who I am. Once again, Yuji Shizume, Japanese professional voice actor, working at a Japanese voice acting agency called Mouvement. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok under my full name, Yuji Shizume. What's in Japanese, so it's Shizume Yuji. If you're interested, please follow me on whatever social media. And if not, I'll think about something of a new video, and I'll see you again. Thanks for watching.